Welcome to Truth by Billie Beene. Today's date, March 4th, 2025. Time in Texas, about 10 a.m. I have a subscribe button in the lower right corner of my screen. Thanks for like, subscribe, and share. And for hitting the like button, which helps my channel to grow. Some of my sources today: God in the Bible, Patriot subscribers, Breitbart, Gateway Pundit, Zero Hedge, Hal Turner. Some of the things we'll cover: Haboob in Texas and New Mexico. President Trump, halt all military aid to Ukraine. And the U.S. plan out of Nato. So let's get started. I have something from a Patriot subscriber who says that regarding the recent meeting last Friday between President Trump, our Vice President J.D. Vance, and Zelensky, it was a shameful act of disrespect for our president and America by Z and his team. I agree 100%. And so let's get started. We have this coming out of Austria, that there was a NATO NGO. It's called Austria NATO NGO, a non-government group, but we know that all these NGOs, both inside the U.S. and globally, are supported by the U.S. government. So I say to Elon Musk and President Trump and Doge, whenever there's another incident, we're seeing protests go on in the U.S. and globally, I suggest that Doge needs to go after other avenues of money that are going both inside the U.S. and outside the U.S. to NGOs. And so we have this coming from Austria, NATO NGO. If the U.S. military tries to leave Europe, well, Europe is just going to confiscate all the U.S. military equipment in Europe. Really? And this is coming from Gunther Fellinger John. Really? According to Hal Turner, once the U.S. military leaves NATO, which we believe is on our event horizon, Europe doesn't have the capability to confiscate the U.S. military equipment because Europe cannot move any equipment without the heavy lift by the U.S. military. So we suggest that Gunther Fellinger doesn't know what he's talking about. And we have this. This has been confirmed. All U.S. military aid has been paused and is sitting wherever it is outside of Ukraine. This is on ships. This is on planes. This is on the border with Ukraine and Poland and Romania. All military aid to Ukraine has been paused. And we know tonight at 9 Eastern time, which in Texas will be about 8 o'clock, President Trump is going to address Congress. That's a joint session of the House and the Senate. I believe President Trump is going possibly to make some very significant statements regarding this pause in military aid to Ukraine, and possibly about the U.S. saying bye-bye to NATO, the World Economic Forum, and the UN. And we, the people of America, say to President Trump, bring it. And we have this from Zero Hedge. Rumors are coming out about the U.S. leaving NATO, and which is supported by President Trump, we believe, by many Republicans. We see President Trump's aide, Elon Musk, head of his Doge team, putting out public statements on X and other platforms regarding the U.S. leaving NATO. And this is also supported by hundreds of millions of American citizens. We have Senator Mike Lee, Republican, Utah, publicly supporting. We have Thomas Macy, a Republican from Kentucky, also publicly supporting. So I submit this is a plan by President Trump to see what is the feeling of the American people. The American people, I believe, primarily want America to isolate, get us out of NATO, out of Europe, out of the UN, out of the World Bank, and so on. Let us isolate, bring back our U.S. military to our soil. Excuse me. We need the U.S. military back in the homeland to defend the homeland against the cartels and the CCP. This is really where our military battle will be. And we have this from Ross Story on Steve Quayle's aggregate site. General Mike Flynn, and General Flynn, I'll remind you, was the one who tipped off Pam Bondi, President Trump's AG, and the DOJ about the generals in the Pentagon shredding Epstein information. That happened not this previous Saturday night, but the one before. And that's when Kash Patel, head of the FBI, and an FBI team went into the Pentagon, and the generals were subsequently arrested. But that tip-off came from General Mike Flynn, who now says NATO is a thing of the past. And once you think about it, that's true. It was put in place after World War II. But it has far outlived its usefulness, and let's be clear. The primary back of the NATO is the American people and the U.S. military. President Trump, according to General Mike Flynn, has put on the table of America the U.S. leaving NATO. So that's going on. And now we have this from Daily Mail. Starmer, the head of the UK, who secretly signed a deal with Zelensky just days before President Trump was inaugurated, to take 100% of anything of value in Ukraine, Starmer, says he's forming a coalition of the willing. We don't need the U.S. military. No, we can, from France and the UK, hey, we can put together 20,000 boots on the ground to go to Ukraine to hold Ukraine against Russia. Well, Starmer, in addition to Russia's active duty combat military, Russia has 4 million reserves. What do you think your 20,000 are going to do against the millions of Russia? And I submit this, your 20,000 can't even get to Ukraine unless the U.S. military moves your troops and your equipment. And it appears the U.S. is pulling out of Europe and NATO. And we have this. Yes, Starmer, we're going to put together a coalition of the willing, and it doesn't include the U.S. And our Vice President J.D. Vance says, this group hasn't fought a war in 40 years. UK and France can only put together 20,000 troops, while Russia has 4 million in reserves. Yeah. And the U.S. also has plans to take down the sanctions against Russia. That would be part of the peace deal, yeah. From Gateway Pundit, Canada. We have a leader in Canada who's now threatening the United States of America. Doug Ford, he's a premier in Ontario. Well, if the U.S. is going to put in place tariffs against Canada, well, we're just going to cut electricity. This will be in the New York, Michigan, Minnesota area. We're going to cut electricity to 1.5 million Americans. Take that. I would submit to Doug Ford that the U.S. is perfectly capable in its power grid of making up for any loss of electricity put in place by Canada. And old Canada will make a great state song when Canada becomes the 51st state of the United States of America. And we have this. Yeah, we have now the deep state using a new method of weather warfare against the people of America. This has to do with a haboob, which is a giant dust storm currently taking place across New Mexico into Texas that is miles wide and thousands of miles high, winds 80 miles per hour, visibility about a quarter of a mile, and in many areas, zero visibility. Some parts of some major highways are being closed between New Mexico and Texas. I-10, I-25, and El Paso Airport has visibility of 1/4 mile. So this started Monday morning and is to continue through Monday night. So that's going on. So President Trump, we need to find out about these chemtrails, this weather warfare, and so on. We have this from Breitbart. President Trump's Doge team has cut $80 million at the Pentagon that had been identified for use by DEI. That money is cut and saved. And we have this. 25 million pounds of cocaine have been seized along the U.S.-Mexican border in the past week. A primary takedown was near San Clemente, California, by the U.S. Border Patrol. So we see God, the American people, and President Trump taking hold of many problem areas in America. This concludes my flash. I love you, and I'll see you soon.